Homage to fundamental teacher Buddha Shakyamuni. Homage to wisdom warrior Manjushri. Homage to all lineage benevolent masters. The Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered even in 1,000,000 eons. Now we are able to hear, study, and follow it. May we fully realize Tathagata's true meaning. In order to liberate all sentient beings from samsara, generate supreme bodhicitta. Now we continue studying the words of my perfect teacher, explaining that everything is the nature of karma. Before this, let me emphasize two things for everyone. The first thing we all discussed at the beginning. Each time when listening to teachings, on one hand, you should generate bodhicitta. For all sentient beings, limitless as the sky, I want to listen to this teaching. Having such a mind to receive the teaching is very important. This is the first excellence among the three excellences. There's also the need to maintain pure perception. Pure perception is not just something superficial to tell everyone about. Actually, for example, the place where we listen to teachings, whether it's in a Dharma hall or at a lay practitioner's home or in other kinds of Dharma centers, you should visualize this place as Padmasambhava's pure land, Avalokiteshvara's pure land, or Amitabha's pure land. You must visualize it this way. The people listening to teachings with you should all be seen as bodhisattvas, dakas, and dakinis. Think this way. Don't think about these people listening. The person next to me is a bad person. That person is evil. This person is such and such. As if except for yourself, everyone else is a bad ordinary person. You can't think this way. You should think that these all possess Buddha nature, all have excellent karmic connections and Mahayana spiritual capacity. They are no different from bodhisattvas, dakas, and dakinis. Then you should also visualize the Dharma teacher as either Avalokiteshvara or Padmasambhava, and so forth. From the perspective of inherent purity, everything should indeed be this pure. It's not that we visualize impure things as pure. It is indeed this way. So everyone must definitely practice these 5 pure perceptions. Even if you can't sustain the visualization for long periods, briefly, during the time you're listening to teachings, maintain pure perception. If you maintain pure perception, the Dharma benefit of one teaching session, the Dharma integrating into your mind, and the blessings received are completely different from other classes. This is an uncommon pith instruction in our Vajrayana. So some people who are good at visualization often find that even listening to one teaching session brings them certain benefits. Everyone should not forget this for each teaching session. Below we continue explaining that everything is the nature of karma. In explaining the nature of karma, Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Arhats, and so forth also receive karmic retribution. Today we'll explain stories of Arhats receiving karmic retribution. The two venerable masters, Maudgalyayana and Sariputra, often went to the hell realms, hungry ghost realm, animal realm, human realm, and God realms, to the 5 realms to benefit sentient beings. One day, when they came to the hell realm, at that time there were countless beings in hell, especially when they reached the hell of ultimate torment. In the hell of ultimate torment there were countless beings experiencing the suffering of burning. At that time Sariputra and Venerable Maudgalyayana each displayed their miraculous powers and caused rain to fall. Many beings in hell experienced happiness. Later, they saw the teacher of the Parivrajika's called Purnakasyapa, who had died and been reborn in the hell of ultimate torment, experiencing various kinds of suffering. The main suffering he experienced was, first, his body being burned by fire. Also his tongue was especially long, and on his tongue 500 iron plows were plowing, causing blood to flow, extremely painful. Also hot sand rain frequently fell, along with iron pellets and swords. A rain of weapons fell, extremely painful. Purnakasyapa is also called Purana. It seems that in ancient Han Chinese texts it was translated as Purana. Purana said to Venerable Maudgalyayana and Venerable Sariputra, "When you two venerable ones return to the human realm of Jambudvipa, please definitely convey these words of mine to my disciples. Tell them that your teacher Purnakasyapa has been reborn in hell, and every day iron plows cultivate my tongue, and on my body rains of various weapons fall, extremely painful. You should tell them that Parivrajjikas do not have the virtuous conduct of Shramanas. The virtuous conduct of Shramanas exists only in Buddhism. Your sect is mistaken. Therefore, you should abandon your sect and learn from Buddha Shakyamuni's disciples. Especially after you made a reliquary stupa from your teacher's ashes, you often go to make offerings, but every time you make offerings, blazing iron rain falls on his body. Never make offerings to his reliquary stupa. Convey these words to my disciples. The meaning is that when they wandered to the hell realms, they discovered this non-Buddhist teacher experiencing such suffering. When the two venerable ones returned to the human realm, the non-Buddhists happened to be gathering. They were often dissatisfied with Sariputra and Venerable Maudgalyayana because previously they had also converted from these non-Buddhist sects. This might also be one reason. Moreover, their merit and the power of their practice attracted many people, so the non-Buddhists were especially dissatisfied and prepared to beat them. At this time they were discussing among themselves, saying, "If their attitude is a bit better, we simply won't beat them. If their attitude is bad, we must beat them black and blue this time." Later, when the two venerable ones returned, first Sariputra went to tell them Purnakashypa's words. But because he lacked past karmic connection, the non-Buddhist disciples didn't understand. At that time he also said, "Your teacher is in hell, experiencing such and such suffering. The message he sent to you," he specifically said it in verse form, "Non-Buddhists do not have Shramana conduct. Shramana conduct exists only in Buddhism. You should abandon our mistaken teachings and definitely enter the world-honored one's doctrine." He told them these words, but they seemed to instead hear Sariputra praising their teachings. They heard it as, so sometimes people's karmic connections for quarreling and fighting really have many different karmic factors in communication. Originally, Sariputra conveyed their teacher's words to them exactly as they were, but they instead heard it happily and had a good opinion of Sariputra. They thought, "Oh, this Sariputra is quite good. Look, he's actually praising our teachings." So they didn't beat him. That was fine. Later, Maudgalyayana asked Sariputra, "Did you convey Purnakashypa's message to his disciples?" Sariputra said, "I did speak, but they didn't seem to say anything in response, and on the surface they seemed quite happy. They should have understood, or something." But later Maudgalyayana thought, maybe they didn't hear it, or for some reason. Let me go speak to them. Then Maudgalyayana went to tell them everything completely. Maudgalyayana went to where the Parivrajjika disciples were and told them Purnakashypa's message exactly as it was. At that time, the non-Buddhist disciples first heard him, first saying how their teachings were mistaken and unreasonable. He explained many principles in this regard. Then he said, "Your founder is also now in hell. I saw this with my own eyes. The message he sent to you is such and such." He told them everything. Upon hearing this, the heretics became furious and said, "Not only did this person criticize us, but he also dared to slander our master Uruvela Kashyapa." All the heretics gathered together and began to beat him. They repeatedly struck Venerable Maudgalyayana until his body was battered and swayed like reeds in the wind. His bones were completely shattered from the severe beating. If this had happened in the past, not to mention being beaten bloody by these few wandering ascetics, even if all beings from the three realms attacked him together, they couldn't have moved even a single hair on his body. Truly in the past, Maudgalyayana was foremost in miraculous powers among Buddha Shakyamuni's disciples. He could shake the entire 3,000-fold universe with his supernatural powers in an instant. So a few heretics could never have defeated him. When they beat him, it was pitiful. He didn't even move. At that time, due to his past karma, he couldn't even think of transforming, let alone displaying great miraculous powers. At that time, he was exactly like an ordinary person. The Venerable was exactly like an ordinary person. It seemed he was beaten very severely at that time. When King Ajatasattu heard this news, he was very displeased. He brought his ministers and all his retinue there. Seeing how severely the Venerable had been beaten, he wanted to burn all these wandering ascetics with fire. The king spoke in this way. When he said this, the Venerable said, "Don't burn them. This is my own past karma." The king then said, "If you don't permit me to burn them all to death, then I will banish them all from the country and not allow them to stay." The Venerable also said, "That's not necessary either. This is my own doing." He then recited the verse we often use, "Even after 100 eons, karma does not perish. When conditions come together, one must bear the consequences oneself." He recited this verse. The Buddha taught us that when conditions come together, this karma must be experienced by oneself. There's no way around it, so don't blame them. This must be the result of my own karma. The king then demanded that the most skilled physicians in the country be summoned, demanding that the Venerable's body must be restored within 7 days. Otherwise, I will revoke your salaries. All your future careers will not be allowed to continue. The physicians were very anxious at that time because Venerable Maudgalyayana was very seriously injured. Sariputra was also very saddened because at the beginning they had studied together under heretical teachers, later ordained together, and listened to the nectar of teachings together, and later both attained the fruit of arhathood. Now his good friend had suffered such devastation, his heart was very heavy. At that time Bhikkhu Asaji also came to visit, but Bhikkhu Asaji only gave him teachings, unlike some of us who, when classmates get sick or fight, go to visit them in the hospital carrying a bouquet of flowers. Actually, bringing flowers means being happy. He's in pain, he's sick, and you're happy. But at that time, Bhikkhu Asaji didn't bring any flowers or money to visit. He seemed to have recited 2 verses to him, one verse being, "Neither in mountains nor in the middle of seas, nor dwelling in the sky, can one escape past karma. Whether in mountains, seas, or any place, even in the sky, there is no place in the entire world to escape karma." Just as we tell the story of the world-honored one, whether you flee to the heaven of the 33, into the ocean, or into the sky. "When your karma ripens, you cannot escape by running," he said. "Like shadows following people, there is no place of refuge. Good and evil karma do not perish," so spoke the Supreme Honored One. He said a person's karma is like their own following shadow. This shadow cannot possibly dwell elsewhere. Similarly, the good and evil karma created in past lives must be experienced in this life. This point was spoken by the one who speaks truth, our great teacher, Buddha Shakyamuni. So at that time, Venerable Asaji gave him these 2 verses and left. In the future, when some of our Vajra brothers and sisters with realization visit someone in the hospital or go to see someone who is ill, just recite 2 verses to them and leave. That's sufficient. This is a practice of followers of the Shakya tradition. After he left, Sariputra wrapped Maudgalyayana's body with 7 robes, then carried him to Jeta Grove, saying sorrowfully, "I don't want to hear the news of my good friend Maudgalyayana's death, let alone see it with my own eyes." Indeed, their relationship was very good, so he couldn't bear it. Later, it seems he went to the world-honored one. No, not then. At that time, the physicians... I don't remember this story very clearly. At that time, the physicians kept trying for 7 days. Later, the physicians begged Venerable Maudgalyayana, "You must not die otherwise. The king said we will have no salary in the future. We will have no future or career prospects." Maudgalyayana agreed to help them, then sent his emanation body everywhere to beg for alms in the city, including going to the royal palace. The king was happy, and the physicians were also pleased. He had indeed recovered as before. Later, when Sariputra investigated, it actually wasn't the case. Venerable Maudgalyayana still wished to depart, then he really couldn't bear it. Venerable Sariputra went to the Buddha and said, "It seems Venerable Maudgalyayana will not remain in this world. If he doesn't remain, I myself want to pass into nirvana first." The Buddha repeatedly told him not to pass into nirvana, but it seemed to have no effect. Later, the Buddha also said, "All conditioned things are impermanent. Birth and death are quelled. Follow conditions. If you really must die, then die." At that time, as recorded in Buddhist history, Venerable Sariputra entered nirvana first together with 80,000 arhats. After that, Venerable Maudgalyayana also went to his homeland to teach the Dharma to others. Later, as some histories record, it should be 77,000, approximately like this. In Buddhist history, in the first compilation, "Later entered nirvana," What kind of karmic result is this? It's in the Buddhist sutras. Actually, this story comes from the Mulasarvastivada Vinaya Miscellaneous Matters. It's not just a Tibetan Buddhist account. It's also in the Chinese Miscellaneous Matters section. At that time, the retinue asked the Buddha what the cause was. You see, Venerable Maudgalyayana was completely shattered by heretics and finally passed away. What is the reason for this? Later, the Buddha said, because previously there was a Brahmin's son who married a wife. This wife had a very bad relationship with her mother-in-law. This son was particularly fond of his wife, and later the two of them, that son also became particularly dissatisfied with his mother. Once he thought in his mind about beating her like reeds. He thought this way in his mind and also verbally abused her, saying, rather than having you as a person, it would be good if capable and powerful people beat you like reeds. He cursed her this way. As a result of this karma, for 500 lifetimes he was indeed destroyed and devastated at the hands of others. Finally, when he attained arhathood with foremost miraculous powers, he still had to experience this karmic result. So I think that many of you here should know this is an extremely serious object of action toward one's parents, not to mention actually hitting them, but even harboring such thoughts or verbally abusing them will result in experiencing such terrifying consequences in the future. Some scriptures say that at that time, Maudgalyayana's past life as the Brahmin's son spoke such harsh words to his father. The reason he harbored such evil thoughts in his mind was why he experienced this karmic result. There's also this account. Some treatises say that Maudgalyayana's past life as a Brahmin harbored such evil thoughts toward his own parents. There's also this account, but what I see in the sutra, the Vinaya Miscellaneous Matters, speaks of his mother, the karmic result of harboring evil thoughts and speaking harshly to his mother. Moreover, when Guru Rinpoche taught this story before, he often said it was the karmic result of being disrespectful to his mother. So many of you here should pay attention because of this story. Why we might in our daily lives, not to mention across many lifetimes, but even in this very life, toward our mothers, toward our parents who are extremely serious objects of action, harbor such evil thoughts. I've even heard that some people beat their parents very severely. There are also such accounts. If this is really true, when will this karmic result be purified through confession? Therefore, if one hasn't truly confessed from the heart, it is indeed very frightening. If you don't believe it, that's another matter. But if you believe in this law of cause and effect, indeed some ordinary people, because we don't understand cause and effect, endure much suffering ourselves. It seems to say in the Compendium of the Essentials of Dharma, foolish people without right view do not understand the nature of sin and merit. Cycling through the three realms, only suffering belongs to them. This means that we ordinary people, due to lacking right view, don't understand at all what constitutes sin and what constitutes merit. They cannot understand the true nature of sin and merit. Because of not understanding, in three realms of samsara, they continuously and cyclically experience all kinds of suffering. The cause of suffering is that, first, we don't understand karmic choices. So karmic choices are indeed very important in Buddhism. Why do we often say practicing advanced teachings first isn't important? Building a good foundation first is very important. Because if you truly build a good foundation for the preliminaries and study these principles of the preliminaries, then after 10 or 8 years, even 20 or 30 years, your practice becomes more and more stable and more realized. If we don't build such a foundation, superficially practicing pith instructions or advanced teachings for a day or two, even debating every day, as if one's wisdom is quite good, but in the long run, there's no real realization in your mind. The reason for this is that you need to build such preliminary foundations, especially having great trust in the view of karmic cause and effect. This is very important. So all of you here should also contemplate this story repeatedly and carefully. On the surface, this looks like an ancient story, but if you truly believe in cause and effect toward your parents, toward your guru, toward all monastics, whatever you do, if you do good deeds and create merit, there are similar benefits. But if instead, toward your own biological parents, you have much disrespect, unfilial behavior, slander, or even some actions that harm them, then in such cases, Have you confessed this karmic result? If you haven't confessed, will you experience it? You should contemplate this repeatedly yourself. There's another story. Long ago in the region of Kashmir, there was a monk with miraculous powers whose name was Ravati. He also had quite a few disciples. One day he was in the forest dyeing his robes. Nearby, a householder went out looking for his lost calf. He saw smoke curling up from the forest, so he followed this direction and came near. Indeed, he saw this monk making a fire, then asked, "What are you doing here?" At that time, Venerable Ravati said, "I am dyeing my robes." The owner lifted the lid of the dye pot and looked. He discovered inside was not dyed robes at all, but calf meat that was being cooked. At this time, the monk was also very surprised. What was he surprised to see? He had indeed been dyeing robes, but we often say, "Oh, I never stole anything, never did anything wrong, but my karma has manifested. There's no way around it. I can only accept it." There's really no way, so I can only accept this. My karma has manifested. I blame myself for creating such karma before. I hate myself, some people say. So at that time, this old monk really had no choice, because in front of others, indeed, his robes had turned into beef, so there was nothing he could do. Later, the owner pushed and shoved him, taking him to the king, then reported, "This monk stole my cow. Please let the king punish him." The king didn't ask about the real truth of the matter or the whole story, and threw the monk into prison. A few days later, the owner's mother cow found the little calf herself, so the owner was very regretful and hurriedly came before the king to report, saying, "That monk didn't steal my calf at all. Please let the king release him." At that time he had already told the king, but the king, because he was very busy with affairs, didn't release this monk for 6 months. Later, the monk's many disciples, who had attained miraculous powers, flew through the air and came before the king to tell him, "This monk is our teacher. He is an upright and honorable gentleman. He is innocent. He is without fault. You must release him. Why does your country keep such a good monk imprisoned?" And so forth. They requested the king to release him. At this time the king indeed, because he had been told long ago but had forgotten, so the king personally went to prepare to release this monk. When he saw him in prison with a haggard face, having suffered greatly, he looked particularly pitiful. The king said with great regret, "This matter has been delayed for too long. I have truly committed a great sin." The monk said, "You are not at fault. This is my own doing." The king asked, "What exactly did you do? If this is your own doing, what karma did you create before, or in this life? What kind of karma did you create?" So the monk began to narrate, telling about his past deeds. He said, "I was once reborn as a thief. At that time I stole a calf. The owner pursued me relentlessly. When I reached the forest, in my panic I threw the calf in front of a Pratyeka Buddha who was in meditation. Then I ran away and escaped. But this brought the Pratyeka Buddha the misfortune of being arrested and imprisoned for 6 days. It is because of this one evil karma's ripening effect that I have experienced the suffering of lower realms for many lifetimes. In this life I also suffered such hardship, but this is the final ripening result." At that time the monk himself admitted this. He was also quite remarkable. Then he recalled his past life and told this story. "I have seen this in the Chinese Miscellaneous Treasures Sutra. I've seen this story in the Miscellaneous Treasures Sutra. But this story has some slight differences in plot and timing, though it has similar general plot elements to this story. How does it tell it? Previously, there was an arhat named Liu. Under him were 500 disciples, all of whom had attained the fruit of sainthood one day. It was basically the same as this story. He was also dyeing robes when someone lost their cow. When they went there to look, the grass he was boiling had turned into beef, the robes had turned into cowhide, and the dye inside had turned into blood. He saw it completely, just like the previous story. The pot was full of meat. At this time, the Arhat himself also felt this was very extraordinary. Then they brought him to the king for punishment. It seems the king had him imprisoned. When he was in prison every day, he did very menial work in the prison, like cleaning horse manure and so forth. For 12 years, his many Arhat monks observed through supernatural powers where their teacher had suddenly disappeared to. But they couldn't find him anywhere in the world, because before his karma was exhausted, he couldn't be found through supernatural powers. Later, After 12 years, his karma gradually came to an end. At this time, they discovered he was in the king's prison. Then many arhats flew to the palace through supernatural powers, demanding the king release this person. Then the king personally went to the prison to see if there was such a monk. There was no monk at all. Moreover, at that time he had long hair and beard, and an emaciated body, without the appearance of a monk. He came back and told these arhats, "There's no such person in my prison, not a single monk." Later, the arhat said, "You'd better go announce in the prison that whichever one is a monk, all monks will be released. By saying this, perhaps he himself will understand what he is." The king followed their request and went to the prison, saying, "Today all monks imprisoned here will be released." At that time, perhaps because his karma was purified, his hair and beard fell off by themselves, he appeared wearing robes. He returned. At this time, he perhaps displayed the 18 kinds of miraculous transformations. The king was very regretful, prostrated before him, and confessed. At that time he said, "Your Majesty, you are not at fault. This is my own karma manifesting." Regarding his karma, he also said, "Previously, one of my cows was in the mountains. At that time when I apparently lost the cow, there was also a Pratyeka Buddha in the mountains. Then I caused that Pratyeka Buddha to suffer wrongfully for 1 day and night. Due to this evil karma, I experienced immeasurable results in the lower realms. This time, even when I attained arhathood, I still experienced such karmic results. So I think many of you here must pay attention. Why does the author tell many stories of noble beings here? We ordinary people needn't even be mentioned. As for noble beings in this world, arhats, bodhisattvas, buddhas, these should all be supreme and most magnificent, yet they all appear to experience karmic results regardless. Some people say appearances aren't necessarily real, but all of samsara is appearance. When we don't eat, hunger is also an appearance. When I encounter suffering today, it's also an appearance. In the face of such appearances, cause and effect are indeed infallible. So some people often say, everything is emptiness, nothing matters. Such people are particularly frightening. Although all phenomena are empty, for us we certainly don't have the realization of Shravakas like Maudgalyayana and Sariputra. So in that case, will we be governed by cause and effect? We certainly will be. When we often go to various cities, some Buddhists speak to teachers often in very respectful and praising tones. "Oh teacher, nothing will happen to you. If you create some karma, surely nothing will happen. If you eat meat, it's surely beneficial to beings. If you kill beings, surely it's all liberation. I believe in you." But your belief and a teacher's wrongdoing don't necessarily truly transcend samsara. So we must indeed be careful regarding karmic choices. If you yourself are not an accomplished master and you casually kill, eat meat, drink alcohol, smoke, and also kill, steal, commit sexual misconduct, lie, doing all kinds of evil, then this cause and effect can only be your own responsibility. There's truly no other way. But the foolish are not afraid, while the wise are particularly afraid. This is the difference between the wise and the foolish. The Buddhist sutras also say, "The foolish delight in creating sin, the wise are always fearful." The foolish delight in creating sin means they enjoy creating negative karma. The wise are always fearful means the minds of the wise are always afraid. Having such right wisdom, they see all the dangers of evil. What does this mean? Why are the wise always afraid? They possess this wisdom of right view regarding cause and effect. Because they have this wisdom of right view regarding cause and effect, they can completely see the ultimate danger of all negative karma. For example, those of us who are educated and have some wisdom think it's best not to be corrupt or break the law. If you break the law, the karmic ripening in prison later is still very frightening. It will be like this. So in our worldly life, belief in cause and effect is indeed very important. But in this world, how many ignorant beings are there who first of all don't know that creating negative karma leads to experiencing results? Some people, although they know, their understanding doesn't seem deep. Some people know superficially, but deliberately commit crimes knowing they're wrong. There are also very many such people. This is a story about noble beings. Let me also tell a story about bodhisattvas receiving karmic retribution. King Surabhibhadra of India had a prince named Powerful Virtue. This prince Surabhibhadra was actually a manifestation of the demon king. Previously, Nagarjuna had invited much Prajnaparamita teaching from the Naga realm and from other worlds, and was widely propagating the Mahayana Dharma. In this world, Demon King Mara was very displeased. Later, he tried every means to transform into Prince Surabhibhadra to cause harm. This was his initial purpose. One day, the Queen Mother gave this Prince Surabhibhadra an exquisite and distinctive seamless robe of 5-colored brocade, a very fine garment. The prince said, "I won't wear it now. It won't be too late to wear it when I inherit the throne." He wanted to prepare to wear it when he obtained the throne. The Queen Mother told him, "You probably won't have the chance to obtain the throne. Originally, after the king passes away, the prince should rightfully inherit the throne. But your father, King Surabhibhadra, and Nagarjuna actually have unified life essence. Because they have perfected the elixir practice, their lives are unified as one. So as long as Nagarjuna hasn't passed into nirvana, your father also won't leave this world. And Nagarjuna has already attained mastery over lifespan. If he wishes to remain in this world with this mastery over lifespan, just like Vimalamitra and Padmasambhava, he will continue dwelling in this world without passing into nirvana. Because of this, many of your elder brothers have died without being able to inherit the throne." At that time, some of Nagarjuna's biographies say he had already lived 671 years. Others say 700 years. Nagarjuna had already lived so many years without showing signs of passing away. At that time, the prince was very anxious and asked, "What kind of clever plan is there?" So the Queen Mother devised a strategy for him. Nagarjuna is a bodhisattva. If you ask him for his head, he will surely give it. Other than this, there is no other plan. Besides this, there's no way. Very likely, if you go ask for it, he will give it to you. So the prince came before Nagarjuna and asked for his head. Nagarjuna was also very forthright. At that time, Nagarjuna also thought to himself, according to the excellent biography of Buddha Shakyamuni's causal deeds, he countless times gave his head, eyes, brain, and marrow to beings. This time someone comes asking for my head, so I should give it. Later he very readily replied, "Cut it off yourself." So Prince Powerful Virtue vigorously swung his precious sword, but no matter how he tried, it was like dancing in empty space. He couldn't cut off the bodhisattva's head at all. At this time Nagarjuna told him, 500 lifetimes ago I completely purified the karmic result of being cut by weapons. So if you use weapons, you cannot cut off my head. But I once, when cutting kusha grass, at that time also killed some insects, cutting the bodies of some insects with kusha grass. This karmic result hasn't been completely purified yet. Therefore, you can use kusha grass to cut off my head. When the prince gathered kusha grass and cut Nagarjuna's neck, his head naturally fell down. While making this sound, "Now I go to the pure land of bliss. In the future I shall also enter this body." Nagarjuna passed into nirvana. At that time, Nagarjuna had already manifested nirvana. After manifesting nirvana, his body, a Rakshasi woman, took that. When Nagarjuna manifested nirvana, because his head had already been severed, no blood flowed out, but white milk flowed out instead. At that time, the prince was afraid that his head and body would reunite again, so he took the head to a very distant place. Venerable Taranatha of the Jonang school, in his book on the biographies of great Indian masters, says initially Nagarjuna's head and body were about 4 yojanas apart, but because Nagarjuna had already attained the fruit of long life Vidyadhara and had also perfected the elixir practice, for these reasons they manifested as 2 large mountain masses on this mountain range. Others built temples there to commemorate this event. Later it's said these 2 mountains of the head and body have been getting closer. Now they're about 1 krosa apart. Venerable Taranatha said his teacher personally saw these two mountains originally when Guru Rinpoche went to India one day when we were passing by the Indian people there and some monastics stopped on the road. Then, at a distant place at that time in that place in southern India, there was a particularly large reservoir on both sides of the reservoir pointing to two mountains said to be Nagarjuna's head and body. From far away they were still visible. We didn't go close. Going close would probably be very far, and time was also tight then. I don't know how many people from our area go to India, but it seems many people go there in a days. Just visit Bodh Gaya and come back. In southern India there is. So once the head and body reunite, Nagarjuna will again enter this body and propagate Mahayana Madhyamaka. At that time, the armies of Kala Chakra will also come to this world to destroy heretics and establish the Mahayana secret teachings. There's also this history. In any case, this story has already demonstrated that the noble Nagarjuna, a first-stage bodhisattva, his final nirvana was indeed related to his past life's karma. So when we die, whatever the conditions may be, it's certainly related to my past life's killing of beings. When my body gets injured or others beat me, this is also related. Even if two workers fight and one worker takes a stone and whack, makes a hole in the other's head, and he goes, woo woo woo, blood is flowing from here. That's also past life's conditions. A while ago, a Khenpo from our institute, when returning from India, was in a car that flipped over and he nearly died. In a semi-conscious state, to those around him, he didn't die. But at that time, he nearly died and felt he might die immediately. At that time, he repeatedly said, "You must not seek out the driver to punish him. If I die, it has nothing to do with him." I think this is what a Buddhist should truly do. Otherwise, worldly people might think, oh, my death is due to your poor technique or some other reason of yours, or today you injured me, this reason is... Especially now, some backward tribes have various traditions where even the smallest things all become sources of negative karma to cause trouble for you. There are such cases. We Mahayana Buddhists in general, indeed also, when particularly unpleasant things happen to ourselves, logically speaking, it's best not to blame others. Even if someone deliberately cuts you with a knife or hits your head with a stick, whack, or beats you, whack, 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 like this, afterwards you say, oh, wrong, wrong. I beat you like this before. It's nothing, nothing, thank you. This is truly a kind of self-other exchange, a kind of from past lives. Whether noble beings or ordinary people, this negative karma and positive karma always belongs to oneself. It will not be exhausted. So we must have this understanding. But worldly people nowadays are not like this. Even when others have done nothing wrong and they themselves did wrong, they must push it onto others and settle accounts with others. There are such cases. This is the behavior of not understanding cause and effect. In the Sutra of the 10 Causes, it says the actions that worldly people perform, whether good or evil deeds. These actions return to the body, never decaying or perishing. There's this scriptural evidence, meaning the things worldly people do, whether good or evil, ultimately return to their own bodies throughout. They will never be exhausted or decay. Whether noble beings or ordinary people, whatever we do, ultimately falls upon ourselves. When you have to experience the results, you shouldn't think others are wrong. You should know that you yourself are wrong. The above stories tell us that even noble beings like them still need to experience these karmic ripening results. How much more so for people like us, who have wandered in samsara since beginningless time and created countless negative karma. Moreover, we still continue to accumulate sins in our confusion. We really don't know when we'll be able to gain liberation from samsara. Even escaping the lower realms is probably not easy. So now let's think carefully ourselves. If these noble beings truly experience karmic results, how much karma have we created in this long samsara? The karma we've created will definitely be experienced by ourselves. There's nothing to say about this. Just as I gave this example repeatedly before, whether bitter seeds or sweet seeds, once the seeds are planted, they will definitely produce their fruits. Similarly, when we harm others or help others, these results will definitely appear in our own mind stream. It should be what's spoken of in the Samyukta Agama. For example, when planting seeds, according to the seed comes the fruit. You now plant bitter seeds, later you must receive them yourself. Just like when a person plants seeds, they will definitely get their fruit. To give an analogy, whether you plant bitter seeds or sweet seeds, they will definitely ripen their fruit. If they didn't ripen their fruit, then no one in our world would plant crops. Similarly, good and evil, their nature is the essence of happiness and suffering. This point must be understood. Now we worldly people are too ignorant. We don't know at all that creating negative karma leads to experiencing suffering. This is a particularly regrettable thing, so we must be cautious and careful at all times and places. Even the most minute negative karma should be eliminated with all our heart and effort. Even the smallest bit. Try not to create negative karma. First, we must understand what is sin and what is virtue. This certainly requires study and contemplation, certainly must be understood. If you don't understand which are sins and which are virtues, you won't even understand this point. Even the most insignificant virtuous deed should be accomplished with wholehearted effort. Even the smallest bit reciting one Avalokiteshvara mantra or turning a prayer wheel for 3 minutes. Or, if you see a stupa on the road, remove your hat, place palms together, prostrate and circumambulate once. If you have time, contemplate slightly the Buddha's qualities in your mind. Virtuous dharma is accumulated bit by bit. It's not that you abide like this for one day and you begin to be enlightened and all other virtuous dharma doesn't need accumulation. It's not like this. Many wealthy people, when they want to accumulate wealth, also begin accumulating bit by bit. Some wealthy people value and are more attached to small amounts of money. So generally, those without merit don't care about the cause and effect of good and evil. Those with merit pay particular attention to karmic choices. If we don't start from such small things, then with each moment's negative karma, one needs to dwell in the lower realms for several kalpas. For this reason, even very minute negative karma, we absolutely cannot think this little bit doesn't matter and have a dismissive attitude of indifference. We think it's just a little bit, nothing serious. Slandering others or killing a being or drinking a bottle of alcohol or smoking a cigarette, thinking these are all nothing serious. We can't think like this. Those who truly understand cause and effect still try to prohibit even minute negative karma. Shantideva personally said this. Creating grave sin in an instant, one dwells in hell for eons. How much more so with beginningless sins accumulated heavily, losing the good realms. In one instant, having wrong views toward Guru and 3 jewels or killing beings. Such negative karma causes one to dwell in a Vichi hell for many lifetimes and eons. How much more so with the very serious negative karma we've created since beginningless time. The Sutra of the Wise and the Foolish also says this: do not think sins are small, harmless, and despise them. Though sparks are tiny, they can burn grass like mountains. This is also the same, meaning don't think negative karma is very small and despise it. To give an analogy, for example, a tiny spark, if you throw a tiny spark into a pile of grass as big as a mountain, then in that case, everything will immediately start burning. The source is just very small bits of fire, but the result is the entire mountain burns up. Recently, there was a big fire in Russia, said to have burned 300 aircraft, right? How many? Let's see who tells the news. Well, come speak, it's permitted. How many? The fire hasn't been extinguished yet, right? Yes, how is it? Speak up, it's okay. The source of this must be very, very small. Similarly, the negative karma we create appears very small on the surface, but actually brings immeasurable suffering to ourselves. Many Dharma friends here must indeed pay attention to good and evil cause and effect, because since beginningless time, we may have heavy afflictions and ignorance in our minds. Sometimes we create negative karma without understanding cause and effect. Sometimes, although we understand our karma is too heavy and we really can't help it, we can't restrain ourselves, there's also such negative karma. In any case, we must first know creating sin is a particularly bad thing. Then we ourselves try our utmost to make karmic choices. If we really can't make the right choices, you can't think, oh, everything is finished for me now, so I'll just continue creating negative karma. You can't think like this. Even if some sins have already been created, confess repeatedly before Guru and 3 jewels. Repeatedly recite some mantras. So generally, the wise indeed won't create negative karma at the beginning. Even if they create some, they find ways to pull out this root of sin, so their mind stream won't be defiled. So I think this kind of right view of cause and effect is very important for us, especially that everything is the nature of karma. This point is very important. Many of us now often say, this is my karmic retribution. This is my past life's karma manifesting. This kind of statement is truly correct. Many of our affairs have some relationship with past life karma. Sometimes the many things that appear in our own lives are particularly strange. This shows they have karmic relationships with past lives. Sometimes the relationships between people, whether happiness or suffering, are also very wonderful. This is also related to past lives. In some, our world is a world of karma. Then in the future, also according to our present karma, I will continue to live. I heard a great master when teaching Dharma say, our present life is very short, future lives are very long. We must think of creating some positive karma for future lives. I think his teaching has profound and far-reaching meaning. Therefore, I hope everyone will also very carefully reflect on themselves. Observe how many years I've been in this world. Regarding karmic cause and effect, how have I valued it, or how have I despised it? How should I walk my future path? You should have an answer for yourself. Good, we'll stop here for today.
Bandara Bandara